Welcome back to If I Knew You Better. I'm Brendan Davis, your host, and I don't have a proper episode for you this week. Sorry about that, but I do have this quick programming announcement that I hope you will indulge me for a few moments to listen to. I want to let you know a few things. First of all, this show is on hiatus through August. Back in September, we will kick it off again properly. It's been tough because of the summer travel and holidays to schedule guests, frankly, and to be able to find a good time for both of us to record. And I do have quite a backlog of people who I am in the process of scheduling now. I have about 7 different guests who I expect to record all within the next 2 weeks. So when I come back in September, we will have a pretty uninterrupted stream of excellent conversations, hopefully. We like to think these things. I think that the guests I have are excellent, and I'm going to do my best to make it entertaining and interesting for everybody listening. The other thing I want to mention is that I do have this other podcast, which is China-focused, called How China Works, and I do that with a co-host named Ying Li. And she and I had a very special night on Tuesday. Here in Beijing, we had our very first How China Works live event. We have been wanting to take our general format, which is the two of us interviewing someone else, and take this to a live setting because we do have a lot of academic guests, but we also have a lot of entertaining people. And we thought, let's get someone who has a great personality for a live event and they have some sort of a story that would translate well. And so we interviewed a lady named Fu Han, who is a very accomplished businesswoman and has a lot of different things to her name. She's the music manager of our previous week's guest, a man named Mark Levine. So she's become a successful music manager as well. But she decided to become a documentary filmmaker to record and honor the life of a friend of hers who she calls grandma, her friend Isabel Crook. Isabel is about to turn 104, and she honestly has one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard. Her parents were early education pioneers in China shortly after World War I. Isabel was born in Chengdu in Sichuan province. And so when you think of all the things that China's been through over the last 100 years, Isabel was here for it. She lived back in Canada a few years, like 2 or 3 years at some point once she was already grown. But China's been her home for over 100 years. And Fu Han, knowing that her friend, of course, is getting old, decided to document it and learned how to make a documentary. She made a short documentary, and she took Isabel back to the mountain in her hometown here in China that meant so much to her, and she uses that as the framework to tell a lot of great stories. So we had this event, and Isabel surprised us as a special guest. She showed up with her caretaker and several of her old friends and students. And it's just amazing. I've got goosebumps as I tell you about it. We, of course, recorded it for a podcast. That is this week's How China Works. It's up right now. It's linked in the show notes, so you can go check it out if you're curious, if I've compelled you to take a look. There's also a link to the 24-minute documentary that's actually there on our page for this. If you go to my Crazy in a Good Way site, you'll see the tab for If I Knew You Better. It's also in the show notes to get to that page where it has all the resources. And there was a multi-camera video shoot courtesy of one of the TV networks here. We had a camera guy as well. And then Fu Han had somebody on camera. So as soon as I get as much of the footage as I can, I'm also going to cut together some sort of a special video package so you can see this. And when I put that out, I will include the actual video documentary in its entirety. I have Fu Han's permission to include that in what I release. So since you listen to this show, I assume you're interested in meaningful, deep conversations with people. We had a very meaningful and fun conversation with Fu Han, but the subject was extremely meaningful, talking about the life of this incredible woman, Isabel Crook. So I wanted to point you in the direction of How China Works this week and see if I can interest you in listening to that show. But regardless, thank you for listening to this. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to bring my guests here to you. And I will be back with some all new If I Knew You Betters in September. See you soon.